Hey guys, welcome back to ARTFX Studios Tutorial Tuesday Season 2 about glitch hop. In the last 2 weeks, I did 2 long production sessions. Now over the last 2 days, I found out that I wasn't too happy with how it sounded. I mean, it sounds really good, but during some parts, it just felt a little bit weird. Now, this drop is becoming pretty complex already, and instead of continuing working on this track, I thought, I want to get this right first, you know? Before I continue, I want to get this to really sound the way I want. So what I did is I took out a couple of sounds to see if that worked, and I found out that it was only making things sound empty and sound less interesting than what it sounds right now. Now, let me play you the drop section that I've got. Listen. So, as you can hear, it sounds pretty interesting, but I find that during some parts, every now and then, it just doesn't sound the way I want. So I tried taking out some sounds, which didn't work, so I then tried to change some sounds to see if that works, and I found that everything I did was actually making things sound worse. So that's when I realized that the thing that I actually like about the drop is coming from the sounds that are, well, most likely the ones that are creating these problems. So, how am I gonna make this work the way I want it, and without taking out any instruments? During this season, we already spent quite a lot of time using filtering, and I used filtering a lot in the sound design process because it's a really great tool when you're actually doing sound design, but you can use filtering for so many different things. So, I think this particular video is actually more of a mixdown tip than a sound design tip, but I think it's really important that you understand how you can use filtering to really sort of like control the final output of your track. So I found that the two parts that are actually forming the main element of the drop are these two group tracks. It's the bass group and the instruments group. Now, the instruments group contains the brass kind of sound and the slap bass, I think. Yes. So that group contains those two things in the drop itself. And it sounds like that. And the bass group contains all the bass sounds. And I've added a couple of more. After last week, I added some kind of a square wave laser sound. And it's a really simple sound. It's just a square wave with some pitch modulation on there, I guess. And it's actually part of a pack I'm releasing soon on my website, which is gonna be available in the web shop. And I'm gonna keep you updated on that pack, by the way. I've also added, let's see. I added that kind of thing. I don't know. Then I added this, which basically is a gabber kind of kick drum made in Operator. And I play it in a really short rhythmic kind of way. And then I also added this particular sound. And it's again used during this part right here. And the cool thing is that these particular sounds, they actually work together quite well. You see, so together they create a really stuttery, rhythmic kind of thing. Now, because I'm adding more and more, it's becoming a little bit of a mess every now and then. And I'm gonna use filtering to clean things up a little bit. And it's really simple. Now, I want these two group tracks to be affected by the same filter. You know, I don't want to put a filter on both the instruments and bass track and having to duplicate the automation. I want these two tracks to be affected by one filter, so that way I can just automate one filter and I don't have to pay attention to a different filter or a filter that's on a different track. Now, there's one thing though. These are actually two group tracks, and as most of you probably know, you cannot group two group tracks together in a new group track, right? So how are you going to affect these two group tracks with one filter? It's really simple. You need to artificially make a group track, and you can do that by using an audio track. So I'm gonna click on the bass track, and then I'm gonna press Ctrl T on my keyboard, which is going to create a new audio track underneath it, and then I'm gonna call this one filter drop, and I'm going to go to the bottom right, and you can see I have the I/O button enabled. I/O stands for in and out, so what that does is when you enable this, these boxes come up, and the top box is the input on the audio track. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll all the way down, and I'm going to select no input, because I don't want this audio track to pick up any sound from my microphone or, you know, any other thing like a hardware synth. I just want this to be acting sort of like a group for these two tracks. Then on the instruments and the bass group, you can see we now also have these boxes, and these are actually the outputs of these tracks. So you can see that the instrument group is being sent to the master track, and it will always do so by default. Now, I don't want this to be sent to the master track. I want this to be sent to my new audio track. So I'm going to send this to the filter drop track, like that, and I'm going to do the same for the bass track. Like that. So now we have these two tracks running simultaneously into the filter drop track. I can now solo this track, but if I play it, you're gonna hear nothing. And that is because right now this audio track is working like a normal audio track. So we would have to put something on this audio track to get some sound out of it. I can, however, enable this in button, which is gonna make this audio track work like an input. So audio is being fed into this track now, and it will run through this track, and then it's being outputted to the master, as you can see. So if I play this now, now it's actually working, and we can actually solo these two tracks at once. So now, everything that I'm gonna do on this audio track will affect both of those group tracks. So we're gonna use some filtering to control the overall output of this track, and I am gonna go to my plugins library. Now, you can use the built-in Ableton filter for this. It's definitely good enough to do this kind of job. However, I am gonna use a new plugin that I got, which is Bytes Vogue. Now, Bytes Vogue is sort of like a channel strip. So you put this on a track, and it contains, well, basically the most crucial things that you need to make a track sound good. This particular plugin really looks back to the days where analog studios are really, really big. You know, nowadays we work digitally, we work in the box, everybody has a computer. But back in the days you would have a recording studio, and you would have a big mixing desk, and all of these big mixing desks have channel strips. For instance, if you take a mixing deck, you know, an analog mixing table, you have a lot of different tracks. Each track has its own fader, and above that, most of the time you'll have some things like EQ, and compression, maybe a preamp or something like that. So this is basically the same thing. It works like a channel strip does on an analog mixing table, but it's digital, it's in the box. So let's see what we can do with this. The first thing I really like about it is the fact that it has the preamp kind of thing. I like that because you can basically just boost the signal a little bit. And that's cool, you know, I like boosting the signal. But for this, I don't want it to be louder. So I'm gonna put this at 0 dB. Let's just put it like there. And I don't want to high pass this, but I am, however, gonna add a little bit of overdrive. Okay, that sounds pretty good. We're adding a little bit of overdrive now, and that creates a little bit more distortion and makes it sound a little bit fatter. And it also helps to glue these two group tracks together, because these two group tracks are now two separate tracks, but they together create the entire drop. So we should definitely sort of like glue them together a little bit. You can do that by using compression, but I like it by doing this way. It sounds pretty good, and that overdrive just helps to make it all sound a little bit more gritty. I can add some compression if I want. I don't want to add some compression to this, so I'm not going to do that. And that is because it already sounds quite compressed. Then the last thing I'm going to do right here is I'm going to go to the Effect tab. I'm going to enable that, and I'm going to enable the signal flow for the filter and set this to, and I'm going to set that to all. Then I'm going to make this a low pass filter, and let's bring it all the way up. Let's see how this sounds. So just a little bit of resonance. We don't need that much resonance. We need a little bit. And I'm going to take that cutoff position and I'm going to keep it at the top position. Now I've moved this little slider, and as you can see, that automation lane is also moving. So I can now go into this particular part. Let's see. Let's try and automate some things. And I need to go into the bass group as well, so I can see what is actually going on. Okay. Let's make sort of like an upward shape right here. Maybe keep it right there. Okay, so I actually like that. I mean, without the Vogue, it sounds like that, and with it, we just get that little bit more filtering on that particular part. I can do it again right here. Let's see how that sounds. Okay, I'm not totally happy with that. Let's see how this sounds. Okay, that sounds pretty interesting. I am gonna create a upwards motion again here. Which is actually not needed, so I can do it like this. I think this sounds okay like that. Second part. Okay, that sounds okay, pretty good. I'm going to add some filtering to this as well. And let's see. Okay, that sounds pretty good. I mean, I don't need to add any more to that. Next part. Okay, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it right here. Okay, I can take this part out because I don't need it right there. And let's see. Let's add a little bit of filtering to this part. You can hear how that, well, really creates an interesting kind of thing. It sounds pretty interesting. I like that. Then I have this one. I'm gonna make the filter close down a little bit over time. And I don't want it to close down that much. I think this is enough. Just to give it a little bit more of, well, just to give it some more dynamics, I guess. Okay, that sounds good. I can check it out like this. I like that. Have it a little bit of, well, it goes down and then it comes up again, which I like. It sounds pretty good. Let's see, I'm now going to duplicate this whole phrase and see how it sounds on the second part. I'm going to get rid of that second automation right here. And let's add a little bit of automation during this part. Let's just keep it like that. Then we get this last part, and let's see. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of that last part, and I'm gonna make this come up over time. So let's see. Let's do that. I like that. And you can really use filtering to make it sound better and to really sort of like control what frequencies are going to be affected and what frequencies are not affected. And that's really interesting. Now I'm hearing one thing, and that is the reverb is actually still not affected by the filter. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna open up the reverb, as you can see right here, and we can see that this reverb is outputted to the master. Now, normally I will always keep my send tracks to output straight to the master, but for this instance I can change this. I'm not gonna put any sends on this filter drop track, so I'm going to send this not to the master, but to the filter drop track. I'm gonna do the same for that reverb as well, like that. And now, those two reverbs are also affected by the filter. And thus you get a totally different kind of thing. Now, I like that, so I'm going to duplicate this, and let's see how the drop sounds. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of these two parts. And I'm gonna make this one a little bit higher. Like that. Let's see. So this part comes in right here, but I'm gonna automate it from this part. Let's do that. So we're gonna get this. Okay, so that works. I'm going to get rid of this automation and I'm going to duplicate that automation over. I can now do some things to this automation if I want, because this automation is pretty high, or this automation goes down all the way. I can sort of like make it go down a little bit less than all the way, because I don't think it needs to go down all the way. Just a little bit is also enough. So like that. And that works perfectly fine. So I can duplicate that, unsolo this track, and there we go. I really like the way this sounds. I'm gonna add one more thing to this. I wanna have some filtering going on this particular part. I can do that on this track as well. Let's take an auto filter. And let's put it before the Vogue. I'm gonna set this to a notch, and I want to automate that notch over this particular note. So I'm going to select this range and do like that. So now we get this. So we got a little bit more motion by doing that. And I'm also gonna automate the on-off thing, knob, button, I don't know. Let's do that, and let's automate it all the way up until here. Let's do it up until here to prevent any weird clicks, like that. So now only that long note is affected by the notch filter, and everything else is not affected. So that's pretty interesting. I'm going to duplicate this whole thing now. Let's duplicate that whole thing like that. So that is how you control frequencies with filtering. This is a pretty helpful technique if you want to make everything sound good and want to make everything work. I can do a lot more to this. I can add, I can add some bit reduction to this. I can automate that on particular things. I can have a couple of bass sounds sound a little bit more bit crushed than others. I can add a high pass filter to this to filter out all the low frequencies during the end of the bar, end of this 16 bars. I can do a lot of things, and it's up to you to decide what you want to do with it. So I hope you like this video. It's a little bit more advanced in terms of filtering. It's not your conventional type of filtering when you are working with sound design. This is really, sort of like controlling the amount of harmonics, the amount of frequencies that are coming out of the drop section of this track. In the next week, we're going to continue. I'm most likely going to do either a sound design session or another production session. I want to make a variation on this drop. I want to, fill out that second part, and then we will move into the breakdown, and then we get another drop again, and then we will move out into the outro. So I think I need to speed things up a little bit. I'm getting a little bit too much videos in one season, I think. Well, I don't think you guys are going to be bothered by it, but I think the season is becoming a little bit long. If you like these videos, then please subscribe to this channel. I'm doing a lot of videos a week. Every video is going to be about music production, and you can be a part of this. You can come to my website, ARTFX-STUDIOS.com. On there you can find a lot of great articles about music production, and you can find a VIP area. In the VIP area are a lot of downloads. These downloads are patches that I'm actually talking about in my videos. So you can watch the video, then understand how the patch works, and then you can actually take that patch, download it, and you can see how it's constructed. You can sort of like reverse engineer it, or you can change it up and use it in the track of yours. All the presets on there, you can use them without any problems. I'm not gonna ask you for any revenue or whatever. You can just use them if you want them. So on my website you can also come there to visit the forum. The forum is about music production, where producers can talk about production techniques. You can share your tips and tricks, or you can actually ask a question, and either I or another producer on my website can respond to that question. You can also post your music on there, and you will get feedback from anybody who's on the forum who likes your track or who hears the track and thinks like, hey, I've got some feedback for that guy. I see a lot of people though just coming to the forum to post their music, and I can tell you that when you are coming to my forum just to post your music, you're most likely not gonna get that many responses. If you want to get responses to your music, then I would advise you to not just post your music, you know, spend some time on the forum, try to get to know other members, take part in some discussions in the production section, ask your questions about a music production related thing, or maybe just share some tips on a particular kind of technique. By doing that, you're gonna establish sort of like a following on my website for yourself. People are gonna know you from the posts that you make. And if you are just coming to my website to post your music and hope to get some feedback, then I can tell you that it's most likely not gonna work that way, and you most likely won't get the amount of responses that you might get when you are actually actively taking part in the website and in the whole community. So if you are a member of my forum, then I will really advise you to spend some more time on there and really try and get to know some of the other members, and really try to get into the discussions on the music production related things. I'm adding a lot of topics every now and then, but I see that there are a little bit too less members actively taking part in it. So I'm trying to promote that. I'm trying to make this work better and better and better, and I'm expanding the whole website. I'm also going to add a lot of more kind of functions and features to the forum. Now, that's it for today. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you back somewhere later this week. Peace.